Good morning. This is Jeff Dawson from Dallas, Texas. And as we come to the end of October of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I just want to say that it's not a monthly disease. This is a yearly disease, 365 days a year, 24/7. Why would I make that claim? Well, because this is my book, Love's True Second Chance. And it is about my true love, Debbie Beck. She died July 20th of 2009 from the disease. And I will say this much, she wasn't an advocate for all of the sites because she was still pretty mad that she was diagnosed with it, went through the chemo, went through the radiation. This is from Susan Komen to provide funding to help to help battle the disease. And I remember her saying, I spend $10,000 a month on this stuff. I'm not spending another penny. She was highly upset with it. And about 2 weeks ago, October 12th, my chiropractor, Dr. Nikisha McDaniel, and I, this was our flyer, did a breast cancer relationship and breast cancer health presentation, which was, and I really don't mean to be downbeat, but it was, I know I advertised the hell out of it. I can understand when we did it in May why there was a problem because it was into school and a lot was going on, but there was nothing going on October 12th unless you're Baptist and you have church Wednesday night. But there was 3 in attendance. I'm thankful for the 3 that showed up. But I mean, this is about fighting one of the deadliest diseases to women, and we only got 12. That was pretty sad. You gals just not serious about it, because I talked about how it affected our relationship, and then the doctor talked about products that she sells through doTERRA to help your breast health and not contract this deadly disease. There's nothing fun about it. And I'm no stranger to cancer. I lost my partner in 1990. I lost my dad in 2005. I had prostate cancer a year ago. Obviously, this was after Debbie died, but going through it with my partner and my dad, I thought I was prepared for this. No, I wasn't prepared for breast cancer at all, because other cancers, they were diagnosed, a battle plan was put together, it was executed. In my partner's case, his colon cancer, the surgery was successful, but it had spread to his liver. And he just couldn't take that. With my dad, and it's interesting, 7 months later after he was diagnosed, my dad, same thing. Cancer was, I forgot what it was called, but it was around his neck, and then he had sores on his face. But he had chosen, since he was 85, 84, he did not want chemo, he did not want radiation, because he'd seen how it affected friends his age, and he wanted to maintain some type of quality of life before he died. And he did. And up until the last week, he was as active as could be. And he'd suffered a stroke when he was 79. He still had the twinkle in his eye. And that was a good thing. But breast cancer is not a 1-month affair. You know, everybody walks around in pink. Everybody does this. Everybody does that. They have marathons. They have this. Well, all I can say is all this money that's being raised is going backwards. Because when Debbie was diagnosed back in 2008, back then 35,000 women were dying from the disease each year, 2000, and over 250,000 will be diagnosed each year. That we're going backwards. Why? I don't understand this. All this money, and I haven't looked up that number because there's so many different organizations, but it's got to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars that is raised each year. And yes, some women are surviving this, but in Debbie's case, she went through it. She went through the radiation. She went through the chemo. She went through the radiation. Because when we got back together after 30 years, she was on the tail end of radiation therapy. And in March, she said it was back. And I said, how do you know? She goes, I can feel it. So they did an MRI, went back in April. Yeah, she was right. It was back. And it was everywhere. It had surrounded her heart. Her liver was 50% covered, and it was in her back. And it wasn't good. The prognosis was not good. Because I remember when we got back from the doctor, her oldest daughter came out and asked me what the doctor said. And I said, well, do you want me to lie or tell you the truth? She goes, I'm tired of being lied to. And I said, okay, this is the truth. Barring a miracle, your mom's going to die. And she just looked at me and said, okay, at least I know what we're dealing with now. Because Debbie only talked to her kids about it once. I know she talked to the oldest daughter, Jessica. I don't know about the younger one, but Jessica said they went to lunch, and her mom said that they had found a lump in her right breast, and she was having surgery, and they weren't talking about it anymore. And they didn't until I showed up. Debbie was very private, but that is the one thing in the presentation we talked about. Man, don't bottle up. Don't go hide. Don't run away. Don't do that. Ask for help. I remember going to one of Debbie's radiation appointments, and she was happy and she had energy, and she went in and had the treatment and came out. I thought she was going to pass out. She was about to collapse. I looked at her and said, how have you done this by yourself all this time? She goes, well, there was no one else around. And that's wrong. People will come out of the woodwork to help you. That's just going to happen. They're going to come out and help you in any way they can, whether it's helping prepare meals, stopping by, maybe to help you straighten up the house a little because you don't have the energy, or take you to appointments. People will do this. So ask for the help. Don't stay hidden. And I go into that in more detail in the presentation. And yes, for those of you that are watching are going, this dumb son of a bitch lost his fiance to cancer and he smokes. Well, I'm doing better on that because I got some products from the doctor that is slowly taking away the desire, the habit, whatever you want to call it. And these are from doTERRA: cilantro, copaiba, clove, black pepper, and I did have lavender, but I ran out. And all I do, you just put some on your finger, put it under your tongue, and it goes right into your system. And the taste is absolutely horrible. I'm not going to lie about that. It's the nastiest tasting stuff in the world. But you get a piece of gum, a cup of coffee, goes away in a couple of, about a minute, and you're good to go. No harm, no foul. But it's also cleaning my system, and I have found out it's also knocking loose a bunch of crap that's in my lungs from 35 plus years of smoking, which is a good thing because I did have a CT scan about 3 weeks ago, and that came back negative. That was a very good thing. They saw a few nodules, but nothing to get excited about. And they said, you're good to go. Quit. I said, okay, we'll quit. But on breast cancer, like I said, it's not a monthly disease. It's a yearly disease, as is any cancer. It's a yearly disease, and it affects far too many of us. Now, one thing I want to do is I'm going to read a chapter from the book. kind of give you a preview of what's going on in my writing style. And then I'll tell you, once I've done reading it, exactly why I set the book up the way I did. July 20th, 2009, 7 a.m. I held her hand and kissed her face with the arrival of a sunny, beautiful morning, hoping for a miracle. The shift change is in full swing. Staff checking in, charts being reviewed, doctors and nurses exchanging information, vital signs being verified. Debbie's breathing as labored as it had been for the last 24 hours. I never knew if each breath would be her last. The cancer is running its course through her beautiful body in a terrible pace. An aide came in to change the sheets and clean her up. She asked if I would like her to wash Debbie's hair. I pondered the thought for a minute, looking at the love of my life, and replied in a hushed, choked tone, "She would like that. How long will it take to change and wash her hair?" She said about 15 minutes. I stepped out of the room and called her friend Kathy to get an estimated time of arrival. She assured me she would be at the hospital within 30 minutes. Debbie's in good hands with the aide. I decided to get some air, purchase a Coke, and have a smoke. I went to the store with one thought running through my mind. Is there anything else I can do for her? Had I done everything I could do for the love of my life? Would God sit by her side and let her live out her life on earth, or whisper in her ear, take her hand, and guide her to heaven? I had no control over what was happening to her. That was the hardest part of this whole deal. No control. Kathy arrived at the hospital room at 8:50. She'd been detained by her hubby, who was in the process of coming home from Alaska after a 3-month tour with the railroad. She called looking for me, and I told her I was downstairs having a smoke, but would be up in a few minutes. She said, "Deb is doing fine." My gut told me different. You ever had that premonition? You're talking to someone about a very important issue, and you just know something's not right. Something had changed. There was something in the air which didn't enter the room. Kathy was standing to the left of the bed. She asked how I was. I never replied. Her labored breathing had stopped. "Kathy, how long has she been like this?" She heard the concern in my voice and saw the look of worry on my face. She moved closer to the bed, put her fingers on Debbie's right wrist, checking for a pulse. She wanted to believe she felt one. I laid my hand on her warm chest. It wasn't moving. The pain in her face was starting to subside. I believe Kathy said she was going to get a nurse. All I could do was rub her chest and stroke her hair. Tears were starting to fall from my eyes. The nurse came in and slowly moved me to check for any sign of life. Without a word, she exited the room, looking for the doctor on call. He entered the room with the nurse. They both checked for signs of life. The doctor slowly turned, looked me in the eye, placed his hand on my right shoulder, and said the words with as much compassion as possible. "I'm very sorry. She's gone." I digested his words and began understanding the depth of our love. My heart didn't break, it literally shattered into a million pieces. I turned towards Kathy and collapsed into her arms, crying uncontrollably. Our 30-year love affair was over. Now, that's the book, and it's on Amazon. Or you can email me at jdawson41, the number, at netzero.net, and I'll send you an autographed copy for $25, and that includes shipping. But when I wrote this book back in 2011, this is about relationships, the good, the bad, and the ugly. See, Debbie and I we met in 1977 in marching band, and she dropped hints bigger than bricks on my head. But at that time, I was pursuing someone else and just wasn't thinking. And when I finally got my act together, we had that high school love for a year and a half. And it was hot, it was intense, it was good, it was bad. And that's what's in the book. The good, the bad, and the ugly of relationships, because they all have them. They have highs, they have lows, they have peaks, they have valleys. It's what we go through. Nothing is just on a level plane. It's not possible. If you're on a level plane, you're not living, you're not growing, you're not developing, and you're not learning about your true love, your partner, whatever you want to call them. just doesn't happen. I watch my parents have highs and lows through theirs, and they made it over 50 years, but it wasn't, it's just not smooth sailing. That's just not possible. And then we got back together 30 years later. Well, how did we reunite? Every 10 years, I would put a business card in her parents' mailbox, not knowing if they lived there or not, because they didn't park their cars out front. They had them in the garage, so I didn't know what they were driving. And I finally did it one more time in December 2008 when I was in Tulsa for my youngest son's Muay Thai competition, Sean. Sean and his girl at the time, they would start coming down to McAllister, and they really got to know Debbie, and he really liked her. That was a good thing, at least. Well, both of my boys got to meet her, but Sean was able to spend more time with her. Justin, he heard about her most of the time, but he did meet her when Debbie and the girls came down for Memorial Day weekend, and we went to a Ranger game. That was fun. But when we got back together, we only got 7 months. And this is a request I put out. How much time can you squeeze into 7 months? Well, if you live in the same town, it's not that hard. We didn't. She lived in McAllister. I worked in Dallas. And when I met Debbie, when we reunited, I was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It sure felt like 24 hours sometimes, and sometimes it was. Sometimes I might work 3 days. I was living to work. I never took time off. And my oldest son called up one day and said, "Hey, you want to have lunch?" And this is a Saturday afternoon. And I'm like, "Well, lunch? What are you talking about?" He said, "Come on, Dad, meet me over here." It wasn't lunch. He took me to the first Transformers movie. And it should have dawned on me then that you're not living. Of course, I loved what I did. I was a project manager. I was in charge of like 15 jobs. I had no girlfriend. My kids are on their own. And I had friends that I would go see on occasion, but it wasn't a priority. My priority was going to work and just working. That's it. So the weekend Debbie and I agreed to meet. And I told my superintendent that I wouldn't be there that weekend. I thought his jaw was going to hit the ground. "What do you mean you're not going to be here?" "Well, I have something else to do. I'm going to meet a girl." "Really?" "Really." So this is January of 2009. Well, the first 2 months was every other week. Every other weekend I would go up there because I told her, "Look, I've got this job. This is what I got to do every weekend," because I was starting to understand that you work to live. And that was the biggest thing Debbie taught me was you work to live. You don't live to work, because when you do that, you don't have a life. And I'm sure that causes a lot of divorces, a lot of breakups when the partner's like, "Well, we got to work. We got to work. We got to do this. We got to make money, blah, 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 blah." Well, if you're not enjoying that money, if you're not spending that money, if you're not living life, then what good is all that money doing you? Because you can't take it with you at all. But that's the introduction to my book, Love's True Second Chance, that is on Amazon. You've got the digital copy. You can get the paperback on it. But as I said, you want a signed copy? It's $25. That includes shipping. My email is jdawson41@netzero.net. And this presentation that the doctor and I do, I can speak for myself. She is a very busy woman. She has a young son. She's very active. If you want both of us booked, you got to give us a couple of months notice, because I've got to get with her and see what her schedule is. If you just want me to come out and talk about the book and what it's like to go through a relationship with someone who has breast cancer, because the biggest revelation to me was chapter 14, about please leave the light on. Like I said, I dealt with cancer with my partner and my father, later with myself, and it was no big deal. But if you have a mastectomy, this is a psychological event for a woman. I mean, go to the movie Aaron Brockovich, where the gal is losing both her breasts and her uterus and says, "Am I still a woman?" Well, the answer is yes, you still are. You just don't have some of your parts, but you are still a woman. And I'll when that night came for Debbie and I to consummate a relationship, and I asked her if she wanted me to turn the light off, and she said no, it hit me like a ton of bricks. She wants to see my reaction of her bare chest minus a breast. I'll leave it at that, but that is when I understood the psychological impact this disease has on women. And guys, can you handle it? I didn't have a problem with it because I just looked at Debbie and said, yeah, you've lost a part. Okay, that's not what I fell in love with. I fell in love with what's in your eyes and in your heart. And I think it is a fair question for any female to ask her partner, potential partner, fiance, whatever you want to call them. How would you feel if I lose one or both of my breasts? Now, yes, there is reconstructive surgery, but you got to get through the removal first before you can get rebuilt. Debbie didn't have that. Because as I have heard, and I can't prove it, but I've talked to people through the years, and they said they've known relationships that broke up because the man couldn't handle it. Well, then he's not much of a man. I mean, yeah, we've got scars from sports and being stupid and being young and all that, and we wear them like a badge of honor. But this is not a badge of honor when your woman takes off her top and you see one or two scars where something used to be. They are very, very sensitive about it, and they're very worried on how you will react when you see that. And if that's all you're there for, then gals, you need to cut them loose. You just got to cut them loose because it's not going to turn out well, and you don't need the grief. But I mean, it's really a good book because I don't paint myself as a white knight who comes in to save the day. I write about a relationship, as I mentioned earlier, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And in those 7 months we got together, we lived a lifetime of love. And, do the math. Take January to July, the first 2 months, it's every other weekend. So do the days there. So what's that, 16 days? And then do the math of 48 hours. Then go into March, April, May, June, July, which we didn't get all of July, but so that's 4. Yeah, now the math is killing me, but that's 4 weekends each month. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. We get 2 days, that's 40. I mean, what it comes down to is we had less than 60 days together in that 7 months. But man, did we live life, and did we take advantage of every minute we had. I mean, yeah, when I went up there like 3 days before she died because things were not looking good. It could have been a week, but I'd do it again, knowing the outcome, because I loved her that much. And gals, that's the type of partner you want, someone that is in love with you, not just the figure from the side view, the front view, the back view, but when they look into your eyes, you can see that they're in love with you, your heart, and your soul, and not just the physical aspect. And that's very important. And that was a major lesson that I learned. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is I have a podcast on BBS Radio 1. And it's called Dawson's Domain. I've been doing it for 2 years. And now I'm at a crossroads. Finances aren't good. It's very tough. I have 2 subscribers. And as much as I enjoy doing this, I need enough subscribers that will help pay for this show, which costs me $99. So that's $200 a month. And the subscriptions start at $2.99 and go up to $49.99. So if I got 5 subscribers at $49.99, it's covered. And you can do the math from that point on. It's $2.99, $3.99, $4.99. I think it's a $5.99. And then it goes up to $49.99. It's just what do you think the content is worth? And I'd really like to keep it going, but I just can't handle that burden anymore on my own. I've gone as far as I can, as I have with a lot of things. But it's BBS Radio 1. It's Dawson's Domain. And I'm not crying the blues, and I'm not crying in my beer. Can't drink it anymore anyway, which really sucks some days. But I would appreciate your support there, because I cover the books that I've written. I talk about relationships. I get guests on there that will just enough to see what they're talking about. So when I put my format together, I have a basic idea of what's going on, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, Fox, ABC, blah, blah, all of them. I don't listen to them. I'm not glued to them because it's all an opinion hour anymore. It's not news, just an opinion hour. Now they will throw in some news facts, but then it's all about, well, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? Well, when you have a lot of people that all agree with you, what do you think they're going to think? They're going to think the same thing. What type of crap was that? That's all it is. And I call them all out. I've been accused by some of my liberal friends that, well, if you would watch real news and go, who you're referring to, tell me who the real news is. And they'll say, well, ABC, CBS, NBC, the stations that we grew up with. And I go, they're no more accurate than the man in the moon. What makes them supreme compared to anyone else? Nothing. But when your ideology is stuck in the mud, you can't see through it. And I call them all out and get all the facts put together, tabulated, organized, and say, here's where we're at. What do you want to do? You make your own decision. I'm not going to make it for you. But here are the facts. Now you figure out what's true or false. It's just like in this midterm election. We're going to see how many voters come out in Georgia. Well, I've got numbers from back in 2020 when we had that Senate race. That, damn it, what's the term I'm looking for? Somebody knows the term. It's right there. The runoff, the Senate runoff, because it was too close to call after the general election because nobody got 50% of the vote. And that was the Warnoff runoff. Well, I've got numbers from that, so I can match up how many voted then in that runoff and who's voting, how many are voting now. We'll see just how bad that Georgia law is causing voter suppression. What did Biden say? Jim Crow 2.0. He didn't read the bill. I read the bill. And that's a lot of the problems that I get into with people. And I do that on the radio show is you hear all these opinions and then I will look at them and say, did you read it? Just, did you read it? And when they say no, well, that answers the question. Then how do you know? Well, I heard it from, they were taught. Who are they? I always laugh at that. Who are they? Do you not know? No, you don't know. So you're just making an assumption. And as my boss at Angel said, assume in one hand and crap in the other and see which one fills up first. So I don't go off assumptions. I go off of what I research and what I find, and I make sure that I have multiple sources collated, and then I can look at them and say, okay, so what is the truth here? And then I'll put that out to the listener and say, you make up your own mind. I'm not going to make it up for you. It's not what I'm here for. But I enjoy it. But I need to have the subscribers that I mentioned by November 9th. Because that's the day I make the decision if I shut it down or not. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this. Like it. Share it. If you want to subscribe to this channel, that's fine. I would rather you subscribe to BBS Radio 1 on Dawson's Domain. And my broadcast, I don't call it a show because I'm not there to entertain. I'm there to inform and educate. It's Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. It has a lot of good content, a lot better than, unless you're one of these mystical nutcases that seems to be what their station is full of. I just shake my head and go, people actually believe this stuff. They pay to listen to this. I mean, what universe are they from? And after listening to their shows, like, I don't know. And to be honest, I'm not going there. I need reality, not where we go one, we go on movement. That was all such a crock. And I didn't realize that I was kind of on the fringe element of it, but I had a subscription to one show and spent way too much money and got nothing in return for it. And that's what they were all about. And they were just nutcases. I actually had one liberal associate of mine go, "Are you one of those QAnon people?" I wanted to bitch slap her. No, I have sense. I mean, they were so far. I don't even know what extremism, but they were out of there. But I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to reality and fact. Because that's what we need, and that's what we're not getting. And the media sure isn't going to give it to us. Excuse me. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Buy the book, and I'm actually thinking of going around Dallas in the next week or two and selling them. And if I do, I'll put that on my Instagram, and you might run into me. But they're going to cost a little more on the street because I'm playing with 30 to 40 bucks on the street. Because I'm trying to get an even number where people have change. I do have a Square, and I think I've got Apple Pay on my phone, but hell, I don't know how the damn thing works. Someone's got to show it to me. Try and make some sales and get this book as a bestseller. And see, that's one thing I won't do is you see that on people's posts about bestseller. Well, the way they did this, and there's some bona fide ones out there, but a lot of the independent authors, well, they came up with this deal that, like on the free, give it away free. Well, if you're number one, well, now you can call yourself a number one best-selling author. Well, that's just crap all because you didn't sell anything. It's all free. And then how many reviews did you get and how many repeat sales did you get? And it's usually about zero. I mean, Love's True Second Chance, my baseball manual, my Vampire versus the Third Reich series, Occupation, my modern day science fiction time travel, government conspiracy book, in the free catalog, free category, they all did well. And I could say, well, I'm a best-selling author, but I'm not going to lie to you. That's not true. I'll be a best-selling author when I sell 100,000 to 1,000,000 copies. Then I can put that tag out on front. Then I am a best-selling author and I can back it up. I don't like to be bullshitted and I don't like to bullshit. And it's really that simple. All right. You all have a wonderful Sunday. Like, share, subscribe to this if you want to, but I'd rather it would be on BBS Radio 1. Have a great Sunday, and I will be back in a couple of days. This is Jeff Dawson from Dallas, Texas, signing out.